I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things, all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. And this week was the 36th annual Survivor Series, but this time, War Games. To open the show, we had the Women's War Games match. One team, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim, and Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair, versus Rhea Ripley, Nikki Cross, and Damage Control. Bianca Belair and Dakota Kai starting things off. Because as we know for the War Games, the rules being 2 teams contained in 2 separate cages, with 2 members starting things off for 5 minutes. Then after 5 minutes, somebody from the advantage team gets to come out, giving them a person advantage for 2 minutes until somebody else from the other team comes out. And this goes on until everybody is in the 2 rings, surrounded by the big 1 cage. And that's when the War Games match officially starts and can end by pin or submission. So after Belair and Kai fought it out for a little bit, Io Sky came out. Because as we know, it was Rhea Ripley who got the pin over Asuka that gave her team the advantage. And then a couple minutes later, came out Asuka. A couple minutes later that, Nikki Cross, who finally brought some weapons into the match. Soon after, she was followed by Alexa Bliss. And at one point, we had Nikki Cross, who's nuts, climb up to the top of the cage and just chill for a minute, until doing a diving crossbody onto all the members in the cage. Next was the leader of Damage Control, Bayley, followed by Mia Yim, followed by Rhea Ripley. And finally, the one who had been announced on SmackDown the night before, the returning Becky Lynch. But of course, at some point in this match, we knew Io Sky was going to do something from the top of the cage, being that she is the genius of the sky. She did a moonsault. Another cool moment in my opinion was when Nikki Cross tried to handcuff Alexa Bliss to the cage, and it backfired as Alexa Bliss was able to handcuff Nikki Cross to Alexa Bliss. And of course, never to be outdone, Becky Lynch had to do a move off the top of the cage. A leg drop onto both Dakota Kai and Io Sky, and then pinned Dakota Kai, getting a win for her team. This was a great way to start the night, and it was very tough for them to follow. As I will say, my opinion, this was the match of the night, was the Women's War Games match. This one started the night off with a 5 out of 5. And then a match we've been waiting for, Finn Balor versus AJ Styles. It was a great match as we expected. A lot of back and forth, a lot of close calls, a lot of intensity. But, like I said, it's what we expected. That was really the only flaw with this match, is it did nothing we didn't expect. Like, granted, we didn't really know who was going to win because the feud going on between the OC and the Judgment Day, it could have gone either way, but it still was like, the match itself was basically everything we would have pictured from an AJ Styles-Finn Balor match, and I was kind of hoping they would give us something we didn't expect. But can't take away from it, after all the close calls and all the back and forths, and a phenomenal forearm that put out Finn Balor and got AJ Styles the win, it was the classic we were expecting, so I will still give it its 4 out of 5. Then for the SmackDown Women's Championship, Shotzi challenged Ronda Rousey. Shotzi by herself, as the night before Raquel Rodriguez got injured by Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, and of course Ronda Rousey having Shayna Baszler, which we knew Shayna Baszler was going to get involved, which she did here and there. But this match was extremely sloppy. I gotta say, this match was not that good. And it wasn't on Shotzi's part. Shotzi seemed to carry this match as best she could. It was on Ronda Rousey's part. Like, don't get me wrong, I get that Ronda Rousey, as far as being in a wrestling ring, is new to it, but she's put on great performances before, but not that night. I don't really know what went wrong. Maybe just a bad day at an office. Maybe just 2 people didn't gel. But just my perspective, it seemed like Shotzi was doing the best she could to carry it. It was just, again, kind of a train wreck. It wasn't a good match. And it ended exactly how we'd expected it to, that eventually Ronda Rousey would get the Rousey armbar onto Shotzi and get the submission. But again, just all the middle part in there, I would say based on the effort, it barely squeaked out a 2 out of 5. Yeah! And then, a triple threat for the United States Championship. Bobby Lashley versus Austin Theory versus Seth Rollins. As we know, Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory both former champions. Bobby Lashley lost it to Seth Rollins thanks to Brock Lesnar. And Austin Theory, a couple weeks ago, tried to cash in his Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins. The first person to try to cash in a Money in the Bank for a mid-card title. And it was thanks to Bobby Lashley that he didn't win that encounter. So it was like everybody getting revenge and Rollins trying to put an end to these two. This match was actually pretty good. Better than I expected it to be. There were some really cool moments, like when Lashley got a double hurt lock. As in, he had both guys in a hurt lock at once. But honestly, other than that, this was a pretty standard three-way match until the ending, which was freaking awesome. As Seth Rollins was doing his superplex Falcon Arrow combo onto Austin Theory, but while he had him up for the Falcon Arrow, Bobby Lashley did his spear on him while Theory's midair, who landed right on top of Rollins and got the pin, becoming the new two-time United States champion. This match was good enough to where I was going to give it a solid 3, but that ending bumped it up to a 4 out of 5. Then the main event, the men's War Games match, with a team of Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, and the Brawling Brutes versus the entire Bloodline. Butch from the Brawling Brutes and Jey Uso starting the match. And then in this case, the night before, it was the side of the Brawling Brutes that had gotten the man advantage. So after 5 minutes, out came Ridge Holland. 2 minutes later, Sami Zayn. Then Drew McIntyre. Then Jimmy Uso. Then Kevin Owens. Then Solo Sikoa. Then Sheamus. And of course, the last, Roman Reigns. But soon after all members were in the cage, meaning the match had officially started, we got 50 beats of the Bowery. Yes, it means everyone on the side of the Brawling Brutes team had a guy against the ropes while they punched on their chest 10 times each. And it ended in a great way with Sami Zayn, whose loyalty had been put into question because of the night before, when Kevin Owens had talked to him and he had lied about it, proving his loyalty to his tribal chief by first stopping Kevin Owens from getting the pin on the tribal chief, then hitting Kevin Owens with a low blow, followed by a haluva kick, which was followed by Jey Uso hitting him with a big splash and getting the pin on Kevin Owens, so the Bloodline wins War Games. I would not say that this match was as good as the women's. Like I said in the beginning of this review, in my opinion, that was match of the night. But it was really awesome, and it also earned its 5 out of 5. So, Survivor Series War Games overall was freaking awesome. Honestly, in my opinion, the best Survivor Series I've seen in years. The last few years, Survivor Series was basically their way of doing bragging rights. The pay-per-view they had done twice and kind of fizzled out. They'd kind of moved it over to Survivor Series, where it would just be a Raw and SmackDown pay-per-view. No titles on the line, no real point to anything going on, just Raw trying to prove they're better than SmackDown and vice versa. Which, as a fan, was a little interesting, but not really, because it really doesn't matter to us which brand is better, considering everybody keeps going back and forth between brands anyway. This time, with War Games added to it, which first of all was awesome. Don't get me wrong, I'm a little sad that there's no more NXT War Games because I liked it being over there. But it was time for it to go to the main stage. War Games was honestly, in my opinion, one of the best things that WCW ever actually did. But War Games itself was always awesome. So I was fine with and actually excited for them to do War Games at Survivor Series. What I also liked about it, though, was at first when they announced it, I thought it was going to be just a Raw team versus a SmackDown team inside War Games. But that wasn't the case. This wasn't Raw versus SmackDown. These were 2 War Games matches, one between the women and one between the men, where these were blood feuds. As we know on the women's side, those women have been rivaling Damage Control for quite a while now, with Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross just joining the fray. On the men's side, all 5 of those guys, the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens, have been heavily feuding with the Bloodline in some variation or another for the last couple of years. It was the perfect way to do it. The filler matches were good, except for one of them. The AJ Styles versus Finn Balor match was good, just wasn't anything beyond what we expected. The triple threat match was really good. The women's championship match, again, I'm going to try and chalk this one up to just a bad day at the office. We'll see in the future how Ronda Rousey fares in other matches, but for right now, I'm just going to chalk it up to it was a bad night. It happens. But the 2 main matches that we were hoping for, the War Games, they did not disappoint. Then again, it's very hard to have a disappointing War Games match. Because ultimately, whether the team you want to win wins or not, it's still a big freaking car accident that you just can't turn away from. Honestly, despite the fact that the filler matches were only a couple of 4s and a 2, I still, just for the War Games matches alone, would easily give Survivor Series War Games a 5 out of 5. So there you have it. That's my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of Survivor Series War Games. Tell me if, like me, you hope next year there is another Survivor Series War Games, or just a War Games pay-per-view all its own. Love you guys.